Hello. Let's talk about gambling in multiplayer games. The reason I want to talk about this topic is because right now there's a seasonal event taking place in Fallout 76 called Fasnacht. It's about preparing and taking part in a festival celebrating the end of winter and the coming of spring. But it's also an event that brings up how gambling mechanics are leading to a sense of unfairness. Fasnacht is very interesting actually. It's based on a real-world celebration that takes place in the real-life town of Helvetia in the real-world version of Appalachia. Yes folks, this mythical outside does actually exist, and I'm told that you can get infinite frames per second. Anyway, the town was settled by immigrants from Switzerland. Fasnacht is one of the traditions they kept from the old country, so it's got a strong traditional European feel to it. But like I was saying before, the way the event is designed raises questions of fairness. This is not so much a discussion of a single event, it's more of a discussion of how we can make events fairer and less reliant on gambling mechanics. Before we break it down, let's cover what it entails so people who haven't played Fallout 76 know what I'm talking about. During the 2 weeks of the year that it normally runs in, Fasnacht happens at the top of every hour. The first phase involves collecting items to prepare the celebration. So you might have to brave the bees to get honey for mead, or collect wood for the pyre. Once you've got everything ready, then comes the march itself. The robots from each shop will line up, and you're encouraged to march along with them. And maybe even add a few celebratory fireworks of your own. But those damn froggies are no fun, and of course you have to protect the robots. And nobody's ever accused a super mutant of being fun, so they come and try to spoil the party too. None of these enemies are too difficult, and when the march finishes, then it's time to send Father Winter back to his hideout. And of course there's only one proper way to do it. Kill it with fire. Everybody who's in town gets random prizes related to Fasnacht, and what everybody wants is those rare Fasnacht masks. Even if you haven't seen one before, you've probably noticed one of the better things about the event, just from my description. And that's that the event has a narrative to it. Everything you do is related to Fasnacht in some way. Killing squirrels? It's for those delicious German sausages. Because...
our sausages are the worst! I jest. Please buy them.
And an extra tip if you're a carnivore. This event gives you loads of squirrel meat for cooking stews that give you extra XP. If you're still at the point where you care about that, then this is the time to stock up. A lot of people underestimate this, but if you dig down into it, everything you do in a game tends to be pretty simple. Sniping an enemy boss with a headshot, in game terms, is just moving the mouse and clicking on a bunch of pixels. Doing a quest in most games tends to be going from A to B and maybe having a conversation. It's simple stuff, but if you enjoy doing that in games, it's because you're not just clicking on pixels. You're slaying the dragon and rescuing the princess. Or the prince, if you lean that way. Whatever floats your boat. Either way, there's a purpose to it. The best games are good at clothing activities around a plausible narrative reason. And if there's one thing that Fasnacht does really well, is putting a story to the activity. Decorating the town isn't just clicking on a bunch of pixels, it's preparing for the party. It might be easy to just dismiss the event as just busy work, but when you come across pictures of the real town and the real parade, then you start to appreciate just how closely they modeled the event and the town after the real life counterpart. Say what you want about Bethesda Fallouts, but one thing they do really well is draw inspiration from real life locations. It takes seeing a comparison like this to appreciate it, especially when you're like me and it's very likely that you'll never go to these places. But knowing that places like the tea house are based on the real life event made me focus more on the details. I probably wouldn't make the trip to see the real life town, it's just too far for someone like me. But these details enhance the narrative purpose around the event. It's a small little thing, but I think that basing the event activities around the narrative of the event matters a lot. If there's one thing about Fasnacht, it's that nobody will ever complain that it's too easy. It is easy, Very easy in fact. A player with a low level character will not find it difficult in any way, especially because there's usually lots of people around. So it's actually harder to hit enemies before they die than it is to kill them. But that's the point. This is not meant to be a combat challenge. It's meant to be a celebration where the players come together, have a bit of fun, and get a few fun prizes. This is a positive. Some light co-op helps the players bond with each other. Everybody pulling out their flamers and going to town on Father Winter has literally zero purpose in the event. All the event wants you to do is click on the pyre. But people do it to have fun with each other. And this matters. Even if you never ever see these players again, that feeling will stay with you. This helps to build and maintain the community spirit. But because of how easy it is, some people just go AFK. AFK stands for away from keyboard, meaning that the player isn't around to respond to you if you chat with them. In the context of Fasnacht, this means leaving your character logged in inside the event area while they do other things. So every time the event happens, this character automatically gets the event rewards, just by being in the town when it happens. This leads to some players taking offense at those AFKers, and some people even try and push them outside the event zone so they miss out on the rewards. But why is this happening? If you think about it, someone going AFK during the event doesn't cause anyone else to miss out. Fallout 76 creates rewards for every player, so AFK players simply results in more Fasnacht masks being created. Each player still gets the same rewards regardless of how many players there are. So why should anyone else be upset that some people go AFK at Fasnacht? It's not like they're stealing your rewards. But if I was to speculate on why that happens, I'd say that the lack of participation is the underlying issue. Remember that the event is meant to be cooperative. It's about bringing players together to take part in something together. And that together is the key. A player going AFK undermines that together aspect and makes other players feel like those players are freeloading off their work. Again, those players aren't actually losing anything, but to them, they feel that they're being used. This touches on a deeply ingrained aspect in our psyche, the notion of fairness. Someone taking the time to do all the prep work, do the parade, and light the pyre gets exactly the same number of rewards as the person who did nothing, and might not even actually be online. There's a sense that fairness is being violated. Right now, most players actively participate, so a couple of AFKs aren't really going to make a difference. But imagine for a second that AFKing becomes more prevalent. After all, if you think about it from a min-maxing perspective, it's by far the most optimal approach. Zero work and free rewards. This is not happening yet, but there's nothing stopping it from happening. I think it's worth pointing out that the only reason it's not more common is that the community as a whole doesn't think that way. But if it did, then it would be a problem, because Fallout 76 servers have a 24 player limit. It wouldn't take too many players thinking this way to cause a real problem. The event is easy enough for 1 or 2 players to do it by themselves, but if it becomes common for a very few players to turn up, then those players would start asking themselves why they're doing all the work. Again, this is not happening at the moment, so that's more of a theoretical situation, but the point is that there's nothing technically stopping that from happening. But we also have to ask why people go AFK in the first place. They're not even playing, so what do they get out of leaving the characters hanging around? Well, this one's simple to answer: unique masks. Make no mistake, Fasnacht masks are some of the best looking rewards in the game. They stand out in a way that only a massive head can, and a lot of them look really good. From my perspective, it's perfectly understandable that people want them. But that brings us to a core issue with the event: the gambling mechanics around how these rewards are given out. Every time you complete an event, there's a chance that you'll get a mask, and the rarer the mask, the smaller the chance. We're talking 10% for common masks, and there's only 5 types, so that's not too bad really. The uncommon ones have a 4.4% chance to drop, but now there's 17 unique items. Now we're starting to get a bit more grindy. But the rare masks have a tiny 0.2% chance to drop each time you do the event. Yes, you heard right, a 0.2% chance of a rare mask. And there's 25 items in this pool. You don't need to have a PhD in mathematics to see that it would take a very large number of events to get all the different types of rare masks. The chances are somewhere between shitty to none. That's right, there is a reason why people leave their characters logged in and go AFK. But keep in mind that the event takes place over 2 weeks, and Fasnacht only happens at the top of every hour. So at most, you have 14 days times 24 hours opportunities. That's a maximum of 336 events you can participate in, not counting crashes and getting logged out for whatever reason. At a 0.2% chance to get a rare mask, that means you'll be lucky to get even one rare mask. Unless there's some kind of pity mechanic working behind the scenes, silently increasing your chances. It's easy to get upset at the AFKers for riding on the coattails of others, but when you think about the odds, it's hard to blame them. The odds are just too tiny, so the event becomes a source of frustration for people who want the masks, instead of the feel-good party it's meant to be. It's almost a minor miracle that AFKing isn't more widespread actually, and that speaks well for the community as a whole. But I don't imagine I'd be alone in thinking that it could use improvement. So, because we're not a bunch of whiners, let's talk about what we could do to make things better. The simple and most obvious solution would be to increase the chances for each reward tier. That would decrease the grind, but it wouldn't actually fix the core issues. AFKing would still be the best way to maximize your chances of getting a rare mask. The developers putting in more checks to force idle characters to log out would reduce the benefit of going AFK, but again, that's not actually addressing the core issue. Band-aid solutions aren't long-term solutions. What I think would make more sense would be to complement the random rewards with something like a score system. So if you participate in the event by doing the prep work and taking part in the parade, you accumulate score. Then once you get enough score by doing enough events, you can exchange that for a mask, including the rare masks. You could make the score another currency, and yes, I know that adding yet another currency would come with its own problems, or you could use something physical like the tokens from the fairground. Ironically, this is exactly what the caravan system does. You run caravans and get supplies, then you can spend those supplies at the caravan headquarters. So what I'm suggesting wouldn't be too different, except that you buy masks instead. Another way would be to make the older masks available for gold or something similar. It's a common complaint that Minerva's menu just doesn't change, and it's boring. So adding masks would give people more things to spend their gold on. Yes, it's a band-aid to Minerva's problems, but it would make things better. Even a game like First Descendant, which is all about the grind, has much higher chances, and for unique skins, it uses a ticker type system like we talked about. You still have to do hundreds of boss battles to get those skins, for a single character, so it's pretty damn grindy. But you know that you're making progress each time. That's by far the better option than relying on a tiny random chance. You'd also have to adjust the way the event works, because at the moment only a few people will be able to get a score from the prep work. One possible change could be to keep the current numbers as minimums to complete the event, but allow every player to add extra so they can build up score. So for example, at the moment you need to add 50 wood. But if we adopt this idea, then you could keep that at 50 as a minimum, but allow every player to add up to 50 more per event to get more score. The minimums would still allow the event to be completed by a few players, but we reward those who participate, and by capping how much score you get per Fasnacht, we also stop someone just pulling out hundreds of thousands of wood from the scrap box and buying all the masks after a single event. That's just an example, and there's many ways you could do it, but the key point is that you're now trying to reward active participation in many Fasnacht over just parking your character and going AFK. Like I pointed out before, some of the more recent activities already do something like this. So all of this should be well within reach. All it would take is some minor changes to the way Fasnacht works to encourage more cooperative behavior and discourage AFKing. I think that this is a principle that all multiplayer events should take to heart. Minimize the reliance on gambling mechanics and reward active participation.